morning, everyone. I would like to call the Public Security Committee meeting to order of September 28th. It is 9:03. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chavez. Present. Dillard.
Here.
Donovan.
Here.
Rodriguez. Montgomery Step.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would entertain, actually, do we have any public comments at this time?
We have no public comments.
Okay. And I think we would, do we need to take public comment on the minutes? Yeah. Yes. So we'll go to approval of the minutes and we'll move to public comment at this time.
There are no public comments.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes. I'll make the motion. Okay. Member Dillard.
I can second.
Okay, Member Chavez. We have a motion and a second on the floor. If there's no further discussion, all in favor of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and that passes unanimously. All right, let's go to our discussion item, number 4, annual security report. We have Al Styler and Tim Coran here to report, so please proceed when you are ready.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to give you this presentation. With me this morning is Deputy Director Tim Curran. Tim is going to give you some information about our 2022 annual report, including our crimes from last year and some updates on some of our programs. And then I'll finish up with giving you some information about some new initiatives that we have going on. Tim?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Committee. As Al said, I'm Tim Kern. I'm the Deputy Director for Transit Security and Passenger Safety, and I'll give you our 2022 annual report here. To start with, our department's made up of code compliance inspectors. They are public officers. They fall under Penal Code Section 836.5. They have powers of arrest. They can also issue citations. We have a highly visible uniform presence. We're currently budgeted for 62 inspectors and 15 supervisors. In a few slides, I'll tell you how we're planning on expanding that soon. We're also supported by contract security officers provided by Intercon Security Services. They're security guards and they fall under Penal Code Section 837. They also have a highly visible presence. You can see the contractors wear the blue and our CCIs wear the high-vis yellow uniforms. The contract calls for 206 positions and 96 of those are armed. And here's our service area map. As you can see, we go from the San Ysidro, the border, all the way up to our newest station up at University Town Center, from the metro area downtown here and all the way out east to at the Santee station. So this is our Part 1 crimes. These are your more significant crimes, your higher level felonies. You can see that our Part 1 crimes from 21 to 22 went up pretty dramatically. And most of that can probably be related to, COVID restriction 21, very few people were riding, and then going into 22, a lot of increased ridership. And across the nation, there was a significant increase in crime. Overall, that was about a 53% increase from 21 to 22. And our Part 2 crimes on the trolley, these are your misdemeanor crimes, your lower level crimes. Drunkenness, drug abuse, misdemeanor assaults. And again, we saw a pretty significant increase, like pretty much every law enforcement agency across the country from 21 to 22, and that was about 105% increase. Next, these are Part 1 crimes on the buses. We don't get near as many reports on the buses of crimes. Overall, we saw about a 15% increase from 21 to 22. Now, on our Part 2 crimes for buses, you saw a significantly higher increase in crimes. Assaults from in 22, we responded to 591 assault reports, and we only had 321 in 2021. And that includes both misdemeanor and felony assaults. Of note is 162 of those assaults were on MTS employees. And that includes our security officers, the code compliance inspectors, and bus and trolley personnel. We saw about a 84% increase in assaults from 21 to 22. And also of note is 27% of those assaults were on employees. Move on to non-compliant arrests. There was a over 56% increase in non-compliant arrests from 21 to 22. And that includes, refusal to cooperate, refusal to follow instructions. People just will not participate. And we've had people actually say that, I don't participate in your program. They won't show us their fare. They won't move from the seat at all. For fare inspections and citations from 21 to 22, we saw fare inspections increased in 22 about a little over 13%. And our notice to appear citations actually dropped. We were about 19% from 21 to 22. The top three things that we issue citations for have been fare evasion, fare to compliance, smoking. And one thing we've seen a significant increase is smoking of fentanyl on the buses and trains. And we are citing for that. And on that, we've in July of 21, we started issuing Narcan to all of our code compliance inspectors. Everybody's trained in it. We have a training program. Everybody carries it. In the first few months of 21, we used it 15 times. Our code compliance inspectors did. In 22, we used it over 40 times. And to date, in 23, we've used it 73 times. Right now, I can tell you, we're probably using it 3 to 4 times a week currently throughout the system. Encampment details. We have a code compliance inspector who works with one of our security officers, and they go and they check encampments along the right of way. This can be near the tracks, any MTS properties. And we do regular encampment trespassing details, and we go there to address the illegal lodging and other nuisance and sanitation concerns that are on the properties. We did 189 camp details. We did 27 camp cleanups, and we contacted over 1,500 people for outreach services. Of note also is we cleared out over 51,000 pounds of trash and debris in those camps. Something else we do is our ridership experience details. And these are designed in response to customer complaints of recurring issues like lewdness, smoking, drug activity, loitering, those sorts of things. And like lewdness, that can include indecent exposure on the train or on the bus. Public urination tends to come up quite a bit. And the other things, what we do with these, we try to educate our riders on how to use Ride Assured, how to report, those activities that are happening. They can do it, anonymously through a text message system or through a phone call, but we educate on that. We also try to educate on how to use the Pronto system, you have to validate, you need to tap your card, and how to use the system safely. And what this does, it enables our team who conducts these red details to get out there and address those victimless crimes where the victims don't want to make a report. But it might be a misdemeanor, but if it's not committed in our presence, we can't take much action on it. But with our red detail, our ridership experience details, we witness those things and we can address them properly. And a lot of those, again, are drunk in public, smoking on the system, public urination, those sorts of things.
And when you say the red detail, you mean these are undercover, meaning they're not wearing the uniform?
Well, actually, this one's all uniform, but that's another one. That's
Okay.
our public safety team. This one, they do it all in uniform, though. So with the ridership experience details, in 22 and 23 to date, we've conducted over 40 of them. We've issued over 500 warnings, over 400 citations. We've had 122 other violations. And we've also validated Pronto validations over 1,700 times. That means about 30% people who have a valid Pronto card aren't validating their Pronto card when they get on the train. We've had over 1,200 patron assist and the train step-ons. We've done that over 1,600 times. And what that involves is when the train comes into a station, whoever's working that might be one of our intercon security folks or one of our CCIs. They'll step on the train, make their presence known, look at one end of the train to the other, make eye contact, and let our patrons know that we're there and we're looking to make sure everybody's safe and following the rules. Another program we have going is our bus enforcement support team, and we call them our BEST team. 2023 to date, we've had 380 calls for service. Our team has met over 1,400 buses at various bus stops throughout the system. They've inspected over 1,100 bus stops. 74 people who they've contacted have accepted outreach information, and 143 have refused it. We've offered it and they just will not accept it. And continue with our outreach efforts, we actually have a code compliance inspector who works full-time with Health and Human Services and the Downtown San Diego Partnership, addressing outreach efforts throughout the system. And to date, 572 people have been contacted. 24 have accepted shelter. 43 have been approved for a bed, but there was nothing available. And that might fall under, they need a lower bunk and there's only an upper bunk available, or the organization where the bed is might be faith-based and the individual doesn't want to adhere to the rules that go with that faith-based bed that's available. They might have a medical issue, or they might have a pet, and that particular bed won't accept pets with their handler. So what are we doing in 2023? We are very excited about the department increase, as you're all aware. We're looking to add 34 code compliance inspectors to our team, 6 code compliance supervisors, 5 code compliance dispatchers, and we're in the process of opening up 4 new satellite offices. Downstairs, there's we're calling it the old check cashing building, but we actually built a station in there for our officers to work out of. We've opened one up at San Ysidro, right at the border there. And we are in the process of putting a portable office trailer at El Cajon Station and a Palomar Station. And with these, this is really going to increase our visibility on the system and also decrease our response times. Last week was Rail Safety Week. And what that does, it allows our inspectors to get out there and talk to our patrons at the stations and offer safety tips on how to navigate the system safely, how to be safe at the stations when the trains are coming in. And so on Monday, we were at the Old Town Transit Center. We set up a pop-up and offer assistance and education on using the system safely. Tuesday, we're at Palomar Transit Center. Wednesday, we did a presentation at the San Ysidro High School that was very well received by the students. Thursday, we were at the Euclid Transit Center. On Friday, we were at the Irish Transit Center, and something else, we got quite a bit of attention on social media with our events. So we're very excited about that, and thanks to our marketing department for helping us with that.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about some new initiatives, and actually the first one's not really a new initiative. Prior to COVID in 2020, we did what were called special enforcement details, or SEDs. And the purpose of SEDs was to educate our riders on how to use our system, how to navigate, how to buy a ticket. It also provided us specific information on evasion rates, because we would, once a week, we would be at specific stations and we'd be able to do 100% inspection on board that train. We'd work along rail operations to make sure that we'd have enough dwell time in a station that we were able to perform those inspections. Those details were stopped in 2020 due to COVID restrictions, but at the request of some of our board members from East County, we were asked to start trying special enforcement details again. And we did our first one on September 20th at the El Cajon Transit Center. The difference this time is that we added a component to make sure we have outreach workers available at these stations. So if we have any passengers that are in any kind of need, that we'd be able to supply them with those resources that are necessary. So our first detail was conducted at the Transit Center. El Cajon Police were there. They were absolutely fantastic, very supportive of our efforts. They brought their outreach worker team along with us who were nearby for assistance. We were scheduled to go from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. We wound up having to end it a little bit earlier due to police weren't able to support us any longer due to some arrests that they had. But while we were there, we inspected 16 trains. We contacted 933 patrons. Out of those, 354 were in violation. 55 had no fare and absolutely refused to purchase a fare. They were given the opportunity to walk up to a machine, buy a fare in our presence, and then leave. They absolutely refused, and they were issued citations for that. 123 agreed to purchase the fare upon contact, and we had 176 people that had a Pronto card that had fare on it, but didn't validate it, so we weren't collecting that money. That gave us to believe our evasion rate was somewhere around almost 35%. Also, during the detail, we had two juvenile joyriders, ages 12 and 7. We were able to reunite them with their mom. 3 of the riders were arrested by El Cajon Police Department, and we had 6 of the riders were connected with outreach and drug rehabilitation services. It's just some photos of the detail. You can see, inspecting trains, working with outreach workers, and helping people purchase their fares. Our next special enforcement detail is scheduled for October 11th, and we're going to do it at Grossmont Station in La Mesa. I'm not going to do it next week. It's free ride weekend. It'll kind of defeat the purpose. Another new initiative that we're being involved in, and we're really happy to be a part of this. This is a countywide initiative, and this moved very quickly to get approved and get running. But this is intended to serve a segment of our community that might have some cognitive or medical disability that may require some additional accommodations from law enforcement or any personnel that work on our system. It's completely voluntary. There's no registration records that are kept. A person can join or drop out of the program anytime they want. It was originally started up in North, I think, Riverside County for use for motor vehicle stops. But the basis behind this is that if a person has some kind of, again, cognitive or medical disability, they can sign up for this program and they'll be identified with some type of wristband or button or lanyard identifying them as a participant in the Blue Envelope program. So if one of my co-compliance inspectors sees somebody wearing this, he'll ask me, hey, do you have an envelope for me? And on that envelope, it'll give contact information for any caretaker for that individual. It'll also provide the officer with some specific instructions on how to deal with that individual. It might say, loud noises frighten me. I don't like when people stand close to me. I'm diabetic and I may look like I'm sleeping or that I'm drunk. And it'll give the officer that information. It'll have inside the envelope possibly their driver's license or any kind of other contact information. This is a fantastic way for officers to be alerted immediately that there is some kind of disability that could alter how a normal engagement would go. And it also gives that rider more confidence that if something does happen, that they'll be able to be treated fairly and equitably. There's just a list of some of our partners. You can read the list. There was a press conference on Monday announcing this program, and there was a proclamation at the county supervisors meeting on Tuesday, making it official. I believe this program goes into effect on October 20th. So we're excited to really be a part of this. I think not just for my team, but for any of our bus drivers or train operators or any of our station personnel, if they can see this and I can identify a person that could really make interactions go a lot easier. And that is the end of our presentation. So if there's any questions or comments, I'm happy to handle it.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Before I go to committee members, just want to check and see if there's public comment.
There are no public comments.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. So let's start with Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you for that great presentation. It was very informative, and I'm glad to see our, specifically the 34 code compliance inspectors. And I had the pleasure of riding the trolley yesterday to Snapdragon Stadium. And I gotta say, I gotta give kudos to everyone here at MTS. We had a lot of people at the machines, and I had a large group of people that really don't ride the trolley on a daily. And, we were asking and people were just asking. at the machine when they were buying. A lot of them were buying their Pronto card for the first time. And we actually parked at Fashion Valley. And the lady, the staff worker that was there, she was really kind and she did it like in 3 seconds. She got your Pronto card, she got, two-way tickets to and from, and it was just so easy. There was no line. The only thing I will mention is two things, right? One is that it's still not easy to identify the tap, because at the main machine, at the big machine, they think it's for a card, a credit card. They don't know that you can tap there too. So they were looking for the little, I'm like, I helped them look because I know what I was looking for. But when we arrived at Snapdragon, there was filters, right? As soon as you got off, there was MTS filters asking you. If not, you had to tap, right? So I think we did very good. We did very good at this concert. You had a card ready, so it didn't take 15 minutes. There was a little issues with the card, crowded, flooded. Of course, it's to be understood. I am going to come back to the panic button though. I was looking for it, and there was one really far and kind of high. And I did have to, I was looking for it. I saw one signage of the text in case, but it wasn't visible for a lot of people. I mean, I was kind of sitting a few steps from it, but I don't think other people in case of emergency would really recognize it. And aside from that, I had some questions. So when you say fentanyl citation, what is the regular procedure for that?
Well, if we encounter them smoking the fentanyl, if they're cooperating with us and they have identification, we can issue a summons to them right there for that. If it comes that they don't have identification or they're refusing to cooperate, we'll have to call police to assist us in doing identification and issuing that summons.
Okay, so you call the police?
If we can't issue that citation because they're not cooperating with us and don't have ID. If we don't have ID that we can prove who that person is, we can issue that citation.
So you detain them and
Yes.
while the police arrives. Okay, gotcha. Okay. And also I love the blue envelope. That is fantastic. To be able to promote it. I saw the partnerships that you are working with, but how can just regular people access it that don't work with these partnerships?
We were reached out to by San Diego Sheriff's Department, who first contacted us about this, but I believe they're going to be pushing a big media campaign about making this available for everybody.
That's fantastic. I really, really love
Yeah.
that campaign. And I was just wondering because I stood there for like 15 minutes watching that dynamic of people overflow into the stadium yesterday, and these filters, these MTS filters, they were really helpful. And people, they had these little machines at the filters where you just scan, tap, tap. And I was surprised that at least, I don't know, 80% of the people I saw during these 10, 15 minutes I was standing there had the Pronto app, had, money to pay, and they were just tapping at the machines. And so I was walking with this group of people, and they were like, why don't we just have them on the doors? We should have them inside, a little booth inside or on the doors. And I kept like listening to that, or where they were questioning, like, you didn't tap, can you please tap? And they were like, well, you know what? I didn't really know where it was. I didn't know, maybe it's an excuse, right? But I was just wondering, and this is how, and forgive my ignorance, would it be possible to have them on the cart, on the trolley, at the door, something more visible? Because even, for the group of people I was with, they were, I thought, tapping it on the big machine, it was just for credit cards. I didn't think it was for this, they were looking, and I saw a couple people looking around, while we waited for the trolley. And I'm crazy thinking like that.
No, it is possible to get them on board. And we have looked at that. It comes with a high cost. And then they're not as durable because people can jostle them and vandalize them easily on board. And other agencies have attempted to do that. And so it is something that we're keeping in the back of our minds. Like if these other ways of getting compliance don't work, then we potentially could come back to the board and ask for the funding to do that. But as of now, we prefer at this point to try to use our other mechanisms, whether it's, making them more visible on the platform, or like we did with the ticket vending machine, we retrofitted it so that it could be a validation station. And then we're trying to get the educational component out. The SED special detail that we did in El Cajon, that's another way to kind of promote to people that, hey, you have to tap, we're going to be looking. So those are the kinds of things that we're attempting to do now, but if all else fails, we will probably have to start putting them on board.
And this is, again, just crazy thinking, right? And I was thinking while I was waiting there, how in New York you have to, and in many places around the US, there's a little, how do you call it? Those cycling, exactly. And I was thinking, well, we could just probably add it maybe where people are getting into the card, maybe those little like tap, it would open, you go through. Maybe because we don't have that access and that infrastructure that New York has, right? But maybe just where the car arrives, we could just do to the door something that you tap, it goes through. Something like that. I was just thinking of the many places I've seen public transportation work, this little facility where you just, the doors open and you tap, lets you in. So just a quick thought.
Thank you very much for that. Let's go to Vice Chair Dillard.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. It was highly informative, and we always appreciate your forward thinking on how to make the transit system safer and more appealing to more people. So we really appreciate that work and effort. I just had a couple of comments. First of all, I want to say the blue card. I love the blue card. I also saw it on TV. So it was I don't know, on CBS or one of those local stations. They gave a really nice presentation. So a lot of people did find out about this through television as well. So I was so glad to see that came out that way. And I'm a big fan of it because I think that's going to help prevent people from misunderstanding people that are, having these challenges that you named. So kudos to you on that. In regards to the East County Special Enforcement Detail, I'm very excited about this. Our first one was done in El Cajon, like you stated, and I was thinking that because earlier you had reported that Tim, reported that you had, I can't remember the number that you put up about people who say, I'm just not going to participate in your program thing. And I know that wasn't an item that was on the special enforcement detail. And so my question is, number one, did that happen in El Cajon? And if it did, what I wanted to know, regardless of whether it happened in El Cajon or someplace else, is what do you do? What is the plan or policy with someone who says, I'm not going to participate? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if you're not going to participate in our program, whatever you think that is, then don't participate on this trolley. Simple, but that's just me. What is the plan there?
So we had 55 people that refused to purchase.
Okay.
They were given the option, you don't have a valid fare on you, you're welcome to come off and, if you, don't want to get a citation, you can just walk up to that machine and buy a fare, and they're like, no, give me the citation. I'll just take that.
So so that means you give them a citation and let them continue to ride?
They were pretty much getting off at that location anyway. Yeah, I'm not gonna participate. We did have a few individuals, it's not on the report here, we had a few individuals that were, had a little cognitive disability, that, I don't think they were understand what we were trying to explain to them about buying a ticket. We just released them and let them leave. But 55 people were just like, I'm not gonna go. Now, we only had a couple of instances where we had to use force to take somebody off, but when they saw police were there, they pretty much complied and were acceptance of their summons pretty easily. When it's just us, sometimes we get people like, I'm not going. And if you want to try to take me, come on. We
Wow.
get that. We get that all the time. If
Wow.
you want it, you're gonna have to fight me.
Okay.
And then depending on the situation, we don't have any black and white, you will do this, you will do that. Our guys have a lot of discretion. Say, hey, you know what? This is a bad situation right here. People could get hurt if we try to use force. We're just gonna let this go. We don't want to paint them into a corner where they have to do this or they have to do that. That's when interactions really go bad, when you feel like you have to do something. So we let them weigh the totality of the circumstances. And if at this time, hey, there's too many people on board and this is going to be a big fight, just let them go. It'll be much safer for everybody. We don't want our people to get hurt. We don't want individuals to get hurt for $2.50.
Right, right. And I believe in de-escalation as
Yeah.
well. I think that's always a smart
Yeah.
position. The other thing that I noticed about the report was, Tim, the report that you had, was that there's an alarming increase in violence itself. I know that we take the position of that we're addressing it as it comes. There is no real offense because you don't know until something's happened. But what do you think the increase is? Because it seems like it's not just locally here in San Diego, it's across the nation and back. The smash and grab situations going on nationwide. What is causing this increase? Is it just inflation and people just not being able to pay their bills anymore, that they're just getting angry and going out and stealing and whatever else? What do you think it is?
I was just on a call yesterday, monthly. I meet with a peer advisory group. We'd have a call and it's transportation chiefs and security directors throughout the country. And to assist them, we're all dealing with the same issues. And someone used the term, like the last meeting, and they said, the social contract has been broken. And that really is a good way to look at it, because it seems like now if somebody wants something, if you have a backpack, I'm just going to take it. I'm going to take it, and there's nothing going to stop me from that. And if I want to write on that seat, I'm going to write it or cut it or whatever I want to do. Minor arguments where 2 or 3 years ago, people would have a little verbal argument and walk away. They turn into physical assaults now, and then assaults with weapons. I think it's a lot involved with it. I think that the cost for things now and the inflation has got people scared. I think we have a drug epidemic that is alarming in our nation. People need money for that. So that's, and then just their actions when they are high is something. I think the mental health crisis that we're experiencing in our country is alarming also. So I think there's a lot has happened in the past couple of years that has got us to this point. We are trying to be as visible as we can be. Right now we feel like our visible presence is our biggest deterrence to prevent something from happening. That's why we're so big on step-ons. When a train comes in, make sure people see you on that train. You've all heard me say this before. I write all the time. And if I'm on there and I see somebody, maybe not breaking a rule, but just, maybe a radio's too loud or their feet are on the seat or something like that, you're uncomfortable, right? Here's somebody that's breaking the social contract, but when I see one of my people step on, I immediately feel safer because somebody here that can handle that situation. So I gave you some idea. There's just so many things. It's just a bigger social problem. We're victim to the environments that we're operating in. It's not just happening on our system. It's happening on our streets and cities across this nation.
Right. And then my last comment is regarding council member Chavez's suggestion about tapping either inside the doorway or somewhere on, inside the train. Um, I, I think I think it's a great idea, but I'm skeptical that it actually would work any better than just maybe making the Pronto station have some kind of light around it so that it, is easier to find. I noticed that in some of the stations, it's really easy to find. And then in other stations, you have to do an all right search to try to find where do you pay? Whether it's a Pronto or whether it's the machine itself. It's not, it's, you know, I don't think anybody really complains too much about where the machine is because it's usually underneath a covered location. But the Pronto tapping may not be there. It may be sitting out someplace else and further down the way or whatever. And I noticed when I was in Seattle, their transit system, which is awesome, that it was right before you entered into the main part of, well, of course, they have underground transit as well as above ground. But they just had a station that stood all by itself. I actually took a picture, and it had like a highlighted, light, if you will. It was like a red light that went around the whole entire little bulb that was standing up by itself. But it's easy to see. It was just easy to see because you have to walk by to get to the train itself. And I'm just concerned that we don't get like maybe data of other more sophisticated transit systems and see what do they use, because that could be why there isn't inside tapping, for instance, and like Sharon suggested, that it could, leave exposure to, destruction of the machine or whatever, people bumping up against it and it becoming loose and not working at all. So I would just like to see research first to see if other train stations are actually using that system inside or inside the door or whatever. If there might be a reason why that's not the case.
So, Chair, if I may, when we did the detail out in El Cajon, that was from 4 to 8 p.m. on a weekday. Would you say that probably 90% of those riders are typical commuters or people who use the system on a regular basis?
Earlier in the detail, from 4 to like 6 o'clock it was, then near the end of it, it was a little bit less on the commuter side.
My point being that if you use the system all the
Yeah.
time, you know where the validators are.
Right.
But the example from Snapdragon is you get a lot of people who don't use the system all the time and they don't know where it is. So for the vast majority of these folks who have money on their card but don't tap, when we do these details, there are people who know the system well enough to know where the the validators are on a platform, because they use that platform every day, and they, probably come across our code compliance inspectors and they've been told where those validators are. And, we educate them, our PSRs, the passenger service folks that go out during these special events tell people where the validators are too. So, I mean, I have looked at other systems that have the validators on board, and that is why we have the understanding that a lot of times they get vandalized and that kind of thing. So, but again, if push comes to shove and we have to do that, then we'll have to bring a proposal to the board for that.
Okay, and then what is the issue with the tapping? Why are people having to tap over and over and over again? What's going on with that?
Don't know if there's.
The fare system is set up so that it's you can buy a monthly pass, and then you have it on your card, and you tap every time you board. And the whole point is that is to get us the data to say that these are how many rides people are taking. We don't cite those folks that have a monthly pass on their ticket, on their card. They just, because they've already paid for their fare. But the Pronto system is set up so that you have all the money on your card, like a debit card, and that when you tap, you deduct the fare.
Right.
And then as you go through your month, you get the best fare possible. So you will never pay more in a month than what the monthly pass cost is. So that's why the benefit of fare capping is given to those people who use their card as a debit card. So that's why you have to tap if you've got that kind of debit card situation, because every time you use the system, you're gonna tap
Mhm.
and it'll deduct the money that's required.
And does it show? Because I noticed, I bought a card up in Seattle that I was tapping, and I noticed every single time it gave me a balance, like how much money was left.
Does it give the balance on the card? It's on the app, but I don't think it's on the
I
validator.
don't think it's on the ballot.
No,
Yeah,
you
this
get a
was
check
showing up.
mark saying that
Oh,
you've
okay. Yeah, this
paid.
was showing up right as soon
Right, it
as you
just gives you
tapped
to
it.
check that it works.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought that was effective as well, because, you always knew when to add more money to it, so, instantly. So, well, thank you so much for, all the information. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Of course. Member Donovan, did you have any comments, questions?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick questions. First, thanks for the brief. It was very informative. But on this same slide we were looking at on the outreach, special enforcement, there were 176 that did not validate their Pronto card. What does that mean?
So these are the individuals we were just talking about. They have their Pronto card set up like a debit card. So when they validate it, we deduct the money for that ride. Until they validate it, that money is kind of like in the cloud. They've paid for that, but MTS doesn't acquire that money till it's tapped. So if they haven't validated, they haven't really paid their fare. So we have the ability with our scanners to validate it and take that fare off of that card.
Well, wouldn't that just be, they're supposed to tap it on the machine?
Yes,
That's what validating.
that's what
is.
validating is,
So
tapping.
they
They
didn't,
didn't do it.
they had the money on the card, but
Right.
they're not gonna pay
Right.
unless somebody bugs them. So,
Right.
okay. And the only other question I had, and maybe a comment, but you mentioned that your guys have been using Narcan.
Yes, sir.
I know there's been instances where just being near fentanyl can cause a problem. Are your folks trained in, like, if they've got like fentanyl on them or something that could harm our folks?
Yeah.
Are they trained in? how to
Yes, yeah,
handle-
it's part of their training when they issue the Narcan to make sure that
Okay.
they have all the, protective equipment they can have before encountering someone in that situation.
And do you have any, what's the experience on when they use the Narcan? Do you know what, like, percentage they're able to save the person's life, or is that data available?
We don't track that data,
Okay.
because most time when we do use it, EMS is getting there quickly, so we really don't know what happens after
Yeah,
that we hand
okay.
off that person. But there are some times we have to do 2, 3, maybe 4 doses before we can revive a person. But we are seeing an uptick, as Tim mentioned, we're seeing an uptick where, we're doing 3 or 4 a week, and then we have maybe 3 or 4 more that are handled by EMS on our system.
Hmm.
So you'll see we're going to be over double of what we were last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and we have a pattern as well where we'll revive somebody and then they'll refuse medical
Yeah.
care and they'll
Yeah.
just walk away. And then there's other people who travel with somebody who has Narcan and on our system, and that person will administer it to their friend, so it's just everywhere.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm really glad that we were able to get this update today. Usually, there's only one item, it's an info item, but this is super important. So thank you for the presentation and for compiling all of this information. I had a couple questions. One is for the comparisons between 2021 and 2022. I am thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, if those may be a little bit skewed because of the lack of ridership,
Yeah, yeah.
post-COVID. So would love to just see some pre-COVID numbers, even though we weren't dealing with the same type of um, uh, you know, crime nationwide that we're dealing with and incidents nationwide that we're dealing with now. And we're no exception to that. I still would like to see like comparisons of full ridership, so that we kind of are looking at it, you know, maybe over a 5-year span. But not at all saying that, you know, we aren't dealing with some very serious issues. I just would like to make that comparison, if I can. The other thing is I really appreciate these special enforcement and outreach details for what was done at the El Cajon Transit Center. It really gives a snapshot of some of the things that I've been asking around what types of violations are occurring and, you know, the different situations. And I'm wondering why one is this is a crazy data dump that I'm not expecting you all to do, but I would be interested to see if we can kind of track people who are consistently not validating their card.
I've talked to our Pronto team on that, and they are working with the provider to see if there is some way in the software we can tell if we validated somebody, you know, a second, third, fourth, or fifth
Right.
time. And that would give our inspectors some information about when they have that, you know, discretion. All right, it's the first time or second time I'm validating you, as opposed to this is the 10th time I've done this.
Yes.
You know, now you're gonna get the citation. You don't
Yes.
get the break. So we
Yeah,
are
'cause
working with it in it to try to see if we can make that software happen.
Okay, yeah, keep us updated on that because I think that when we're talking about enforcement,
Yeah.
you know, that's a great way for us to not have to make assumptions about what's actually going on,
Yeah.
right? Because you shouldn't be validating 10 times over. Like, you
Right.
know what you're doing at that point. But if it's, you know, once or
Right.
twice, that's something completely different. Or, you know, just sometimes people tap and it may not, you know, like Vice Chair Dillard said, if there's not a transaction there for you to see, you know, I don't, sometimes systems get messed up, you know, and so I just making room for all of that, but still enforcing when we need to, I think is important and it does send a message. So, the other thing is, 123 folks purchased fares after contact. That is there's no cross between the 176 that you validated
No.
Pronto on the, okay.
No.
All right. And I know this has been kind of a little bit contentious, but I see that 123 as better than having to write tickets, have those 123 people go through a system that ends up costing us more in the long term. So I still see that as that opening up that option as overall a benefit to us, because with the 55 that refuse, we're still able to cite and do based on the discretion what needed to be done, hopefully, to ensure, you know, that perception and also just the real safety. So did you have any thoughts about that?
I think it would be nice if there was a way that we could see if that person has been let buy a ticket more than 1 or 2 times. You know, right now we don't have that capability where we're keeping names. But, you know, if we're not there, that's 123 people that might be
Yeah.
skating the system because they don't see us. The same as the people that aren't validating.
Sure.
You know, so it'd be nice if we can get that information like, hey, this is the 3rd time Al Styler has gotten an opportunity. Now you don't get that chance this time.
Yeah.
Now you're going to get the citation and you can go into the diversion program.
Agreed. And it was on these 16 cars, right? So
Yeah.
like you said,
Yeah.
it happens.
Yes. Yeah, this
Um,
is a snapshot. This is a snapshot of what's
yes.
happened for those hours while we're there.
And so that kind of leads into my last question, which is, I guess that's the reason why those purchases are still included in the evasion rate?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone that did not have a valid fare that paid for gets included in the evasion rate. So that's refused, left by a ticket, or didn't validate it.
So it doesn't have to be a citation to
Right.
equal to the evasion
Right.
rate? Okay. All right. Well, thank you again for this. I think that is it. I don't know if Sharon, you had anything else? Oh, yes, sir, please.
You mentioned that we are now breaking the social contract. That phrase really stuck with me.
Yeah.
And the way I see it is that we are relying on an honor system. I would, basically, with our, fair recovery, I would love to see an analysis maybe down the line of our nation's more successful, fair recovery system implementation, what they're doing and how they're getting and recovering this, fair. To see of analysis of what has worked for other states and see how maybe something we can grab
Yeah.
to implement.
You had mentioned earlier about New York City, and I just got a text this morning from one of my former coworkers. And now New York City subway is a closed system, and they're getting killed with fare evasion. You know, they have turnstiles, they have gates, and people are just
Yeah,
jumping over
LA Metro is
gates.
having the same problem.
Yeah, you know, here is a closed system, and people are just jumping over turnstiles. You know, going under turnstiles. Somebody could come out through an exit gate, and somebody will hold the door open, and people will flood in. When I was there, I saw, you know, kids were getting their school passes, and the adults' parents were taking the cards away from the kids and using them to go back and forth to work. So it's a nationwide issue.
We have a digital tapping on buses, right? When they access through the
We have a
door.
much better record on the buses because they have a person there saying you can't get on without tapping. It's
That's,
the same system.
that's something
It's
that
really
we
the
have
trolley
to,
that's the problem.
well, that's something that we're gonna have to come back and do an analysis on how we can stop them at the door and maybe not a person, but no access.
Well, I think, you know, we're moving in a better direction. I think with the more personnel out on the system and with our ability to do these special details, we'll get more data, which I think will really enhance our ability to really focus ourselves and the personnel that we're using. Before the pandemic, before the Pronto system, we were at what, 97%, you know, fare box, everybody was complying. We've done a lot of positive things with the diversion program and all these other things that we've been doing to make people feel more comfortable riding the system. We're trying to be less of an enforcement and more of a public service type of security force. And, you know, I think with the Pronto system and that kind of move in that direction, I think we can get back to where we needed to be, without going back to the old style of enforcement.
And I think also, and I have been repeating this for many meetings, signage. We need to identify better where they tap. People, I mean, I know a lot of people do know and they decide not to do it, but for the new writers that we have, we just need to identify where to tap.
Thank you for that. Just one last request and one last comment. Just a request would be, if possible, to get the material to us a little bit faster. Just now, I have a bunch of questions that I won't ask now, but we'll get together on that. The other thing is, yeah, this is a crazy time for a lot of different reasons, and the transit line is no exception to that. I have philosophical views that I won't go deep into with regard to social contract. I think that government has also played a role in that as well. And so there's a sort of a microcosm of a social contract, person to person, but then there's a large view that I have around some of the things that we have been going along to get along nationwide are kind of rising up to the surface, and they just won't be the same after the pandemic and some of the things that we experienced during the pandemic where we all kind of had to sit and watch, including the murder of George Floyd and other things. And so I just, you know, it is very, very true. I think that is a good way to describe kind of a little bit of what we're going through right now, but we're trying to make daily decisions and react, right? And there's just this larger reconciliation, I think, that needs to occur so that when we are doing enforcement, we can be we can be assured that we are doing that fairly. The part of the issue that we have and why we were moving a bit towards the, changing the way we enforce is because there's been disparate treatment and enforcement, right? It's just profiling and enforcement, and there's all these things. And so we're just trying to, we've been given this task at this time to try to make it fair for everyone, which is what I think we all want. And that just is, it's a lot of things coming up to the surface that I think, anyway, we'll deal with it because we're here and we have to. So anyway, thank you so much for the yes.
If
Mr.
I
Tyler.
can share, we have our commuter advisory group meeting coming up next month, and if there's anything that you'd like them to advise us on, that we could give them maybe a little assignment.
Mhm,
If you could just let us know, I appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, let's, we'll talk about that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes, yes.
And I just want to add, because I know that when we're dealing with public safety, a lot of it can sound really depressing and overwhelming as to all of the different issues that come up. But I do want to say positively that I really appreciate the increase in the marketing department's activity to begin to highlight events in our county. I think that that's really important. It's really positive. It gives a positive impact publicly, especially when it goes on local networks and is, reported in our local, papers around the county. And I think that, having positive reasons to use transit is on the rise. And I think I want to compliment the marketing department for doing that. I don't see them here right now, but I think that they should be recognized because I know that they're really stepping up and really trying to get exposure for MTS on a positive light. And I think that that's so important that we continue to do that and report the good stuff as well. So
Well,
thank
I'll
you.
definitely tell them your words about that, but I'm sure they're listening to the committee meeting right now.
Yes, no, agreed, definitely agreed. So if there are no other questions, comments, thank you again for the presentation, very enlightening. And we will now move to see if there are any committee member communications or other business. No more announcements?
If I
Yeah.
could just say, so Wednesday is free ride day, and I sent out something to everybody if you want to promote it on social media. And then we're really excited about the opening of the Iris Rapid, which is going to be later in October. So that's lots of positive things. And to your point, that's what we need to really focus on.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, if there's nothing else, our next meeting date is December 7th, 2023 at 2 p.m. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.